Good afternoon, everyone. We are here today with Dr. Crystal Consonery. And I'm here to just let you know that we are going to have a dynamic conversation. I will take the time to let her introduce herself, but I just want to say to all those who are just joining us that you can follow me on Facebook. You can watch it live on YouTube, as well as on LinkedIn. So I'm excited to be here to kick off this new season of Candid Conversation with Dr. Crystal Consonery. What a blessing she has been. I've just met her a couple of weeks ago. We were at Howard at Executive Leadership Ministry Institute, and it has been nothing but love ever since. And I just had more questions, and so I thought I just not only ask my questions, but share her with you, the audience. Again, you can always go back and watch it live. I'm excited for what God is going to do this season, and I'm blessed for all the new friendship and relationship He has exposed me to. So I'm just going to go in and let God do the rest. Is that okay, Dr. Crystal?
That works for me, Dr. Anita.
Listen, just introduce yourself and tell people what you want them to know. And if there's something that resonates with you today in regard to messaging, then we can take it from there.
Okay, sounds good. Well, as Dr. Anita said, I am Dr. Crystal Consonery. I currently reside in a suburb of Metro Atlanta in Marietta, Georgia. I'm from a small town in South Louisiana, Donaldsonville, Louisiana. I always mention it whenever I have the opportunity to speak because it is the town that made me who I am. The town, the people, the culture, the way it was during my formative years between the 70s and 80s as I was growing up there. So that town is why I am who I am today. And other than my family and God, of course, that town and the things that I learned there and the friendships that I formed. But Dr. Crystal, who sits before you today, I am a faith based clinical counselor, a life coach. I do hold certifications in positive psychology as well as trauma psychology. And in addition to that, I'm a licensed brain health educator. So I run two companies. I run a for profit company, Crystal Clear Coaching and Consulting, where I offer counseling and life skills as well as seminars and workshops. And then, along with my husband, I run Kaleidoscope Outreach, which is a nonprofit organization that's geared to providing assistance to those who go without the counseling that they may need, the nutrition services, the self esteem services that they may need due to a lack of resources. So, in a nutshell, that is who I am. I am a wife and mother of two adult children. Our children are ages 26 and 23, and my husband and I will be celebrating our 28th wedding anniversary this coming August, in a couple of weeks, actually.
Okay, well, listen, happy anniversary to the
Thank you.
consignary. I know you will be traveling or celebrating in some grateful way. Listen, I was looking over your website last night and some of your podcast titles and some of the content. I think I fell asleep. Listen, I was on like my fourth one last night. It is so soothing and so refreshing. And it's like no more than 6 to 8 minutes long. And so I was able to go through and it helped to really relax me. Today, it helped to center me. Uh, and to the point that I just want to just jump right on in and see, is there something today you brought with you, or do you just want to open it up um, and let me just kind of pose any questions there may be?
You can just go ahead and open it up. But since you mentioned my podcast, though, let me just say this. That podcast, it started off as a blog talk radio program back in 2009 because God put
Okay.
it on my heart to reach women. It was originally geared for women, to reach women who kind of felt like they wanted to go to church, but for whatever reason, they didn't feel worthy of going. So it started off as a 7 a.m. Sunday morning blog talk radio program because the whole mission behind the bulk of what I do is to help women to truly embrace and to step into the greatness that God has called them to be. So I wanted to reach those women who felt like, I because of how I spent my night last night, I don't feel like I'm worthy to go into church this morning. And it was to let them know, yes, you can, because you're always welcomed. And it's just evolved over the years from there.
Well, I love the name, Have Coffee with Crystal. So it was definitely inviting. Uh, there's several things that jumped out, but I'll start with this question. A lot of times we'll go through our day-to-day routine, and it just seems so familiar to us. And then ultimately we'll find out that it is. I look back over. Let me talk about me.
Okay.
Going through this pandemic, we have gone through several seasons. And one of the questions I ask myself when I wake up every day is, okay, Arnita, what season are you in today? Um, so that I am aware where I'm walking, and like you said, not to hold myself back. And so when we talk, I say that because sometimes we can get stuck and don't know it. Sometimes we can let our situations paralyze us. But you did one of your podcasts that talked about embracing faith over fear, right?
Yes.
Uh, and listen, everybody who knows me knows that I am a faith believer. My foundation, my infrastructure is all built on living and believing that there's a higher power than me and that God is able to deliver and to keep. And with that in mind, what we would share with our audience today, who someone may be stuck, maybe questioning stuff, may not be stuck, but just preventing ourselves from falling into giving into fear and becoming paralyzed by that fear. That's what I really want to see if you could address for me.
Right. So we know that we all have a purpose here, but we allow that negative self talk, we allow the opinions of others to get in there and to deter us from the things that God has placed on our heart. So, the first thing that I always encourage people to do, and that I will share with your listeners today, is to always be in tune with what you know God has designed you to do. Don't look to the left, don't look to the right. There's a Greek term called tarasso, and it's only used once in the scriptures, and it was when the disciple was walking on water, and he looked to the left and he began to sink. When Peter was walking on water, he began to sink.
Yes.
So that term tarasso in the Greek means to set in motion that which ought to remain still. And when we operate out of fear, when we look to the left and when we look to the right, when we take our eyes off the thing that we know God has called us to do, we're beginning to set into motion things that are to remain still.
Mm,
So that's the first thing that I encourage. Always keep your eyes focused on what you know God has called you to do. And so often we want to go run tell everybody, right? This is what I'm going to do. This is the plan that I have. And I'm a firm believer. I'm not going to talk about it until it's happening,
gotcha.
because we get so caught up. Even well meaning people jump in there and they're starting with the what ifs and the how comes. And are you sure you can do that? Well, if God said that you can, you can.
Hmm.
So sometimes we have to just put our head down, do the work, and keep going.
So the word charge, you said, is to set in motion those things that ought to be still.
Yes.
What would that look like for? So we know what Peter did, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Give an example of what that would look like to everyday people like us, so that we can understand that we confront a lot of things. Confront us. Life come at you fast. The pandemic is still bringing on nuances. We'll end up not being familiar with the nuances and set into motion those things that ought to be still. Can you give us an example, especially when it comes to our Christian and our faith? We say we have such a strong faith, but we also are human, right?
Right.
And so we can talk ourselves out of some stuff, like you said. So
Right.
what
So
would
I'll give you the perfect example, right? So say you have prepared yourself, you know that God has placed it on your heart to move forward and to start a program that will help young girls. So now you go and you begin to start talking about it. This is what I'm going to do. So now you have someone that's going to, well, are you trained enough to help these young girls? Oh, well, yeah, I'm trained enough, but God told me this is what He wants me to do. Then here comes someone else. Where are you going to hold this event? How are you going to keep this up? So now you start doubting. But you've already identified young girls that you know will benefit from your program. So now you pause. And now you start trying to figure out all of these other things that have been thrown at you. where you had in mind you were just going to do it at a local community center. But now people are telling you, oh no, maybe you need to do it at an event center and maybe you need to make it bigger. So then what happens is you stop the traction that you've already built. But
Mhm.
meanwhile, these young girls that you've identified, they're steady falling by the wayside because the thing God placed in your heart to help them with, they're not getting.
Mhm.
You know, somebody once told me, I was having lunch with a friend of mine, and I'll never forget, she leaned across the table and I was sharing with her something that I wanted to do. And she said, Dr. Crystal, you know, there are people's destiny
Mhm.
that's tied to you. And
Mhm.
if you don't move, they won't move.
Mm.
And that impacted me. And that I'll share with the listeners today, guys. If it's something that God has placed in your heart to do, something that you feel very powerful about, know that there are people waiting for you to move because they can't move until you move. Their destiny is attached to yours.
And that is very real for a lot of us. We will try to see the end before we get there. We try to have it planned and mapped out from A to Z. And I
Mhm,
have come to know that we can make plans, as you know, all we want to, but God is constantly revealing to us a pathway for us. And so if we was to get stuck, we have to just keep moving, knowing that God really did place this on our heart and he is going to make a way. So I don't have all the answers, but I do know that it's real, right? And so that's and a lot of girls do need help and we get stuck not realizing that like you said, your friend said, you know, people can't move because we haven't moved, you know?
mhm,
And so listen, it's unique to me what God gives to me. So for me to go out and tell someone, I believe they wouldn't probably be able to relate in regards to because they don't know my experiences. They don't know where I've come from. They don't know what God did for me yesterday, the day before, and the years before. And so that is why we have to be keep believing that God did not give us the spirit of fear.
mhm.
And that is what I wanted to talk about. But you also talked about. So let's talk about burnout.
Okay.
I know that you are. Executive administrator, I believe it is, for a church. But I want to know how does your gift um, help you to help others in that role before
Mhm.
pandemic and post pandemic? How did it help? How did it change?
Okay. So before the pandemic, I would have to say I was on that same hamster wheel that just about everybody else was on, working, 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 doing, doing, doing. And what I learned from the pandemic is that where I thought I was this huge extrovert, I learned that I'm actually an introvert. But I needed the world to slow down for
Mhm.
me to begin to appreciate slowing down. So now my rhythm has changed and I try to move at a steady balance. You know, I Mondays are my day off. I don't do anything on Mondays.
Got it.
That's my Sabbath, that's my time to connect with God, to do the things that I delight in. Um and then I try to follow a schedule. And that schedule includes my morning time with God. It includes daily working out. And once I'm taking care of me, everything else then begins to fall in place. Because I've learned that if I'm no good, then I'm no good for anybody else. So that's how I maintain my balance because you're right. There I do juggle a lot of balls. Um, but I have to make sure that I'm taking care of me first so that I can effectively give to others.
Well, I just want to thank you again. Taking self-care. Self-care is great. Burnout can sneak up on us. And in leadership roles, we're not going to be the answer to everybody. That's
Right.
really what God's role is. Am I right?
You are right.
But then you talked something interesting about the legacy within, and that was a different spin on how you brought that about. Share with people in regards to how honoring traditions and embracing progress as it relates to legacy within.
Right. So I'll share a little bit. So that podcast, I actually did that one a couple of weeks ago. I was traveling with my husband, and we had attended. He's ex football player, so we had attended a Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And just whenever he and the guys that he played ball with, whenever they get together and they talk, they reminisce a lot about what was, and it's great history, right? And when I say former player, he's a former college player, and
Okay.
they played for a legendary coach. They played for Coach Eddie Robinson at Grambling State, so they reminisce, and I listen to their stories, and it's steeped in tradition. But as I sat there that night and I started thinking and listening to all the stories that was being shared, I was like, this is amazing. And it's amazing how they're now building on it. And that's how we have to do. We have things that have been instilled in us, right, since our formative years, things that are great. And we don't want to, as we grow and evolve, we don't want to throw out the things that help to form us into the people that we are. But we do want to build on that legacy. We want to build on those things so that we can then hand them off to the next generation. Because if I took what I learned, like I said, in the 80s, and tried to instill that into a teenager in year 2023,
Right,
they would
right.
look at me like I'm archaic. So we have to keep our same values. We have to keep the things that made us a success, but we
Yes.
have to be open to building, and knowing that a part of growing and evolving is embracing new things, not shrinking back on our value system, but using our values to enhance and expand upon the new things.
That brings us to my next question in regards to being physically loose and mentally stable. How we speak things into existence, yes,
Mhm.
but also how we frame
Right.
those things. And you talk about helping individuals reframe their thoughts um, processes by creating new neutral pathways. Now,
Mhm.
I had to listen to that one again. So, in your day to day, in your day to day work and living and with families, you know, uh, how does how do I say how are you able to redirect people who are speaking some things, not intentionally, but to be
Right.
mindful, in your day-to-day walk, in your living as a parent.
Mhm.
I'm sure this is part of your daily walk, a part of your fabric. It's who you are, right? So
Right.
our gifts are who we are. So talk to me about helping clients, helping individuals, just friends and family, and those
Mhm.
you come in contact to really give thought and to reframe what it is that we speak into our lives.
Okay. So that's exciting for me because I love the fact that science is catching up with scripture, because the
Okay.
Bible already told us, right, that we can transform our thoughts. We know that. But science is catching up with that, in that it's saying that yes, we can create new neural pathways. So Philippians 4:8 talks about thinking on what is true, what is right, what is pure. And that, when I'm in any conversation, that's how I try to help people to center. So if you can think back, um I'm dating myself, but if you can think back
Okay.
to those old wooden school desks, right? So you would sit at that desk. If you set a child at that desk and you told them, push down as hard as you can with this pen every day for the entire time that you're in class, that's the only task they have to do.
Hmm.
In the beginning, it would be a faint line, but by the end of the school year, it would be a deep indentation. And that's the same way when we think on things. It's when we think about things, we create what's called a memory trace. And the more we think on those things, the deeper that memory trace gets. And especially if it's attached to something negative or something hurtful, we think about it, and then everything that we see now becomes that thing, whatever we experience that resembles it. Someone may have hurt us in our early 20s, maybe they didn't speak to us or they hurt, so now when someone walks past us, our mind automatically goes back to, oh, well, they have a problem with me. No, it could just be that they're in a hurry. So I kind of help my clients, especially with what you call the truth model, TRUTH. So that T, you pause when you find yourself getting caught up, right, in that negative self-talk, the negative thinking, the faulty thinking. You ask yourself, what's the truth in this? So the first T in truth, what's the trigger? What triggered you, right? And like I said, it could be something simple like you're standing up and instead of someone saying hello or acknowledging you, they step behind you. So now you're triggered. They didn't
Mm,
speak to me. They saw me standing there and she didn't speak. So then the R, so WR
yes.
so the R, what's the wrong thinking? So now you're wrong, you triggered because somebody walked behind you. So your wrong thinking is, oh, they must have something against me. I don't know what could I have done to that person. So then the U is the unhealthy response. So now you're triggered, they walk past you, you have your wrong thinking, you're thinking that they have something against you, your unhealthy response. Now when you see that person, you have an attitude with them. Or you have all these thoughts that are just constantly bombarding you because you feel like this person has something against you. So the second T is the truth. So you ask yourself, okay, what's the truth about this? What did I really expect in this situation? So what did you expect? You expected that person to acknowledge you. You expected them to say good morning. But did you acknowledge them? No. What were you doing that you didn't turn and acknowledge them? And it could be something as simple as maybe there was some spilled coffee or water on the floor. So the reason they stepped around you had nothing to do with you, but had everything to do with the environment,
Mm.
right? Because so often we take things and we make it personal when really it has nothing to do with us. It's the circumstances that are surrounding us. So we have to figure out what's the truth in the situation. And then that H, that final H in truth is what's the healthy response? So now that you realize you were triggered because of an experience you had in the past, you automatically went into wrong thinking, thinking someone has something against you. Then you developed an attitude towards that person, or you allowed negative thoughts to take up space in your head when the truth is, it had nothing to do with you at all because now you've paused and you've allowed the situation to speak for that person. So, how are you going to move forward in a healthy manner? What are the things that you can do? You can commit to memory, the truth model, so that when you feel triggered, you have steps that you can go through. You can always ask yourself, what did I really want in this situation? But that's how I kind of help people to stay centered. That's how I stay centered. When I'm triggered, that's what I walk myself through, so I don't get all riled up with situations that really have nothing to do with me personally.
That's a great model. What was the you?
Your unhealthy response.
Okay, that's a great model. See, this is why I think that for a long time we have talked about how uh, therapy and counseling has been a taboo
Mhm.
conversation, but I believe it's becoming more of a realization to some people.
Right.
Um, because just that right there,
Hmm.
providing some type of pathway that I can one remember quickly
Right.
and I can put into my everyday thought process. And sometimes it just really requires us to talk things through, right?
Hmm.
We spend, I don't know about some of y'all, but I live alone, and so I will spend a lot of time thinking to myself, you know, uh, and that's okay because I know me better than anybody that there is, and I just believe that I also need opportunity to talk things through. And so I've added a therapist to my life this year. I just want to be able to live my best life,
Right.
and I want to be able to give my best to those who I come in contact with. I think that's very important in ministry. If we're going to be of any type of help to others, we definitely got to be healthy ourselves. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So again, like I said, I met you in the class for executive leadership. And I'm sure we all went there seeking something. I
Hmm.
know I had been praying for God to lead me and guide me to not a long term course, number one, but something that could just refresh and help me to connect with others of the same like mindedness. And that is what you talked about, surrounding yourself with like minded people in one of your podcasts, right? Can you
Right.
talk about the benefit of that? We say we should surround ourselves with people who can stretch us,
Hmm.
but also surround ourselves with like minded people. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So we are a combination of the people that we spend the majority of our time around. So if you're spending your time, say for me, right, my goal is to help people. My goal is to especially help women, like I said, to embrace their greatness. But if I'm spending time, the bulk of my time, hanging out with people who are doing things that are contrary to uplifting women and contrary to helping women embrace their greatness, then that's going to pull me and cause me to then veer away from what my purpose is. So that's why I believe it's important to spend your time with like-minded people. It's important that when you have your core group, those people that you can go to, your safe space, the ones that you can be your true self, you can be vulnerable with, but because they're like-minded, they have the same thinking that you do. You know that their advice that they give won't steer you in the wrong direction.
And see, that is how I think we can empower ourselves, is surrounding ourselves with like-minded people, and speaking and reframing the
Mhm.
conversation we have with ourselves, right? Our
Right.
thought process, how we look at life, right? And don't make everything personal. Listen, I think that was embedded into my life. Now, I came through the military, and so I'm constantly exposed to different personalities. And I think I'm grateful for the time I spent with them. I spent 32 years in the military, and I think I've come across a lot of personalities, and I've grown through the process of being able to not be so quick to react, you know. But we want to be a help to people. We want to lift people up. And I love when you said in your podcast when you came to Howard, you normally are intentional about where you stay at a hotel, how far you have to walk to get to a conference anywhere. And you said, so several things happened. You said the plane got canceled. You had to
Right.
end up the next day, and you didn't never ever want to lift, but you said, "Thank God, I have been lifting ever since." And when you said, "I have been lifting ever since," I also took that as a spiritual lift as well, where you've
Mhm.
been lifting, but you also been lifting others, you know. And when you came into the classroom, no one would ever know what your previous day had been like, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, what did you gain from being around like-minded people in that setting? I mean, how was that for you?
That experience at Howard was transformative. I did not go, I've been to many conferences, and I was hesitant to attend that one because it said for ministers. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not a minister. I do work, within the confines of business administration, but
Right.
I'm not a minister. So I was hesitant. So then I had the whole flight fiasco. And for your listeners, guys, I was caught up in that whole when all the planes were grounded and there were storms all across the country. That was me that Sunday trying to make it to an 8 a.m. class at Howard for Monday. So plane got grounded. Did not, I wasn't able to fly out until Monday morning. So I made it to class just as lunch was taking place. So I'm walking in and I'm feeling unsure of myself, right? Because everybody, had already had the icebreaker and the introductions, and everybody was starting to
Right.
form their alliances. And well, I don't know if alliances is a good word to say, but everyone was kind of matching energies and gravitating to the people that they felt comfortable with. So here I am flustered because I had never, like I said, lifted before. I had to leave the airport, check into my hotel, and make it to Howard by 1. And God worked that out. But when I walked in the class, I felt so welcome. I think Dr. Anita, you and another gentleman were one of the first two people that I met that day.
Okay.
And the whole vibe in the room just really put me at ease. So for that, I was grateful. And then the rest of the week, it was such a humbling experience. Like I said, I've been to many conferences, and it's always hundreds or thousands of people. So it's nothing personal. This was a group of about 16 to 20 executives, very intentional curriculum. The speakers were handpicked, very
Yes.
intentional. And every speaker spoke to something that was very relevant and can be immediately applied to everyday life. And then the final day, that final day and that final exercise where our the participants in our cohort were able to share a word about us.
Oh, yes, the
That
affirmation.
was humbling to
Oh,
stand there and to listen to what the people that you've worked with all week actually thought about you. You know, that was a very humbling experience. So yeah, that program transformed me. I've been applying things that I've learned every day. It was amazing. I cannot stop talking about that week.
well, I'll tell you, that is a great example of surrounding yourself with like-minded
Hmm.
people. I've been I've been in the community in this neighborhood, or should I say, in the DMV area for the past 11 and 12 years. Listen, I don't meet strangers. I love people. I can laugh and joke with the best of them, but there is that desire that um, people who know us in church, they know us as right,
Hmm.
but
Right.
there's that part of us who just want to be who we are, not connected to a Pacific church, or not branded by a Pacific church, or not even have any expectation. We just want to show up,
Hmm.
and we just want to deal with, we just want to see who we are and be who we are, right? And that is what the class provided for me. Like the like-minded people in regards to talking about leadership. And nobody came in with a big old title. You know, we
Right.
had some big churches sitting in there. No one came in there with a big old title labeled on them. You're right. We were able to laugh, and we were able to share our experiences in life as well as through church. And yet we all came seeking something, and it was so refreshing to walk into. I mean, I've been in a setting a lot of times. Believe us, you like me, we've gone through so many educational groups and dynamics. But there's something about this one here that was able to feed us and not just pull out of us, right?
Right.
Pull on us. But it was able to feed us. Um, we laughed, we joked. We've had some real life experience and
Hmm.
situation, and so I encourage anybody. I'm not here to promote, but I will promote. Howard had a business school.
Hmm.
If we sit here talking, everybody's probably going, "What was it? What was it?" Um, God had dropped in my lap a prayer, an answered prayer I've been seeking, and that is, I don't want to go to another 3, 4 year college for another 3 or 4 year degree. I just needed something to continue to feed, renew, and refresh. And Howard opened in that business class school an executive leadership ministry institute. So it's a 5-day program. So if you're interested, you can check it out. But again, it was able to help us to address some things from a ministry foundation, from a church foundation, in regards to pre-pandemic as well as post-pandemic. You know, pivoting after the pivot, preaching after the pivot, and what does that look like? And sharing our experiences, because we all have an opportunity in ministry or as leaders to create a new normal, to influence the new normal. And that is really necessary, not just for the fact that we've come through a very devastating moment in our lives. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us still have PTSD, and we're responding differently, you know, to whether we show up at church this day or not. And probably before you never thought about it or hesitated. And so now we're trying to find our footing, and what does that look like so that we don't go back to what was, but to be able to move into what God really has for us, to keep seeking our purpose. And so when I walked into the classroom, and when you came in, I knew part of what you said is coming in, everybody had already formed and stormed and normed. And I know how that is, right? And you're probably going, okay, I'm an adult. I can do this. I can handle this.
Right.
But we all failed. We fared well, right? I mean, we went through scenarios that actually showed our personality. We learned some things about us. And I think what's important is that you actually came with some gifts there that allowed you to be able to strive, not just show up, but to
Yeah.
strive because of your gifts. I recognized them, and I just wanted to walk over and just speak, to you because you had that warm, passionate. Listen, Crystal is very compassionate. Crystal is very warm. Let me tell y'all, all this she talked about today, you could not see what it would look like until you actually get to talk to her. And then when we started talking, I looked at her site. It is no surprise. I'm a true witness here that sometimes we just really have to talk it out and ask questions. And I just want to thank everyone who is on live, who is watching. If you have any questions or you have any comments, please feel free. Um, I don't know, Crystal, are you able to be here for another 15 minutes or so?
Yes, yes, I
Good.
am.
So if you have any questions, please, I invite you to post them. This has been very good for me. Um, and so I want you to, if you could, address the myth that therapy has been a taboo conversation, because look at the pathway you have come. And I'm not here to brag about her education or academics, but I am here to say that there's a the, she comes fully equipped. Let me say that. Some people show up, some people can leave. Crystal comes fully equipped. Um, there was a saying in our class that I share. It says, "Dig your well before you come thirsty." Crystal, I believe you have dug your well. So talk about what that comment meant to you. Did it resonate with you? Did it land with you?
It did. Well, thank you. Thank you, for what you shared about me. But yes, it did resonate. We do have to be prepared. And that's what that spoke to me. Dig your well before you need it. Because when you're in the middle of it, it's like putting out a fire. And that's when we scramble, and that's when we respond out of fear.
Mm,
And that myth about especially in the African American community, that myth that we don't need counseling, we keep our secrets, don't talk about what goes on in this house, that hinders us. You know, I believe, and this is just me, this is Crystal. I believe that we have trauma that, and science again catches up with us, that tells us that traumatic experiences are passed down right through the DNA. That's a whole nother
yeah.
program where we can talk about that. But science is showing where when our ancestors have experienced trauma, those trauma responses are still within us. So maybe you've not went through anything traumatic yet, but the way you respond to certain situations is ingrained in you. And the beauty of counseling is that it gives you someone that's unbiased, that you can
Mhm.
talk through, and they can provide you with practicals to help you be prepared and fully equipped. So your well is already dug before you need it. Because we know in life, something's going to get thrown at us. If it hasn't already, it will. And if it has, 9 times out of 10, something else is waiting around the corner to be thrown at you again. That's just the ebb and flow of life, right? But if we're
Yeah.
prepared, if we've already talked about, these are some things that trigger me, or, these are some things that I'm a little fearful or hesitant of, or this is what causes me anxiety, then you can begin to build your toolkit so that when something in life is thrown at you and triggers that, you're prepared and it won't take you out. It may cause you to pause and take a deep breath, but then what you've learned through therapy, through counseling, will help you and it'll kick in. So there is no taboo. Well, there is, but I would hope that we can begin to remove that taboo, to break that stigma that's surrounding counseling.
Well, I believe that we really want to be able to, I really want to be able to take the time today um, to just thank you, Crystal, because I know the importance of um, helping one another. And as Laura's here talks about, she said, you can read it. I do not necessarily have a comment, but thank you for you taking time today to elevate our spirit and to help guide us through directions. Yeah, see, we're all seeking that peacefulness to deal with the challenges of life. What I can tell you is that it's not all every day is not easy. I have to be intentional when I get up in the morning. Um, I get up in the morning, I turn on, uh, maybe I just turn on a show just to have noise in the house, right? But there's some days, like today, something was stirring in my spirit. from last night. And I normally don't like to take care of stuff until I've done what I've come to do today, what God has called me to do. But I thought about your podcast when you said um, it's talking about that faith, embrace that faith, and over fear. And it
Right.
wasn't fear; it was just something I just didn't want to deal with. It popped up all of a sudden. I said, "Oh," so I just, I stopped, I paused, I dealt with it. I said, "I'm not going to delay this," and it's never as bad as it seemed. That's a sermon right there. It's never as bad as it seemed. I just want people to know that I was able to keep moving because I was not going to let something distract me. So I just dealt with it, get it out the way. And that is my approach to life these days. Um, is it a matter of life and death? No.
Right.
So as the scriptures say, be anxious for nothing. So I don't let people or a situation push me into being anxious. And that is how I empower myself every day. And
Hmm.
I just know that, listen, I can tell you, I've been through some things in my life and my faith has brought me through. That doesn't mean I'm not going to go through something else, but it is that saving grace that God has blessed me with that reminds me that if He did it once, He can do it again, right?
Right.
And that my faith is real, that God is real. Um, I am who I am, and I'm not. Um, I cannot be who I am without talking about my faith, without talking about God. I didn't get this far by myself. My neighbor didn't help me. My family, they tried, but I'm telling you that I'm here today, Lois, to let you know that I'm being intentional, not just about my days, but about being able to have a positive impact on other people of whom I come in contact with. There's enough evilness going around in the world. The one
Right.
thing we don't need is to add to that, right? But I believe that if we could take the prescription that Crystal provided, the TRUTH, uh, we could be able to benefit from that. I know, Crystal, you said that the T stood for
Trigger.
trigger. What triggered us, right? Um, I was trying to put it in our comments here just so I can help somebody who didn't have a chance to. Um, but the question is, T is for trigger, and it talks about what triggers us. If you could just quickly give us a lasting comment, one more comment about trigger. You said, why did it trigger us? Was that part of the question?
What triggered us? What's the thing that triggered us? And oftentimes it's because the situation that we're currently in reminds of reminds us of a past hurt. So now
Uh,
we're triggered, and now the current situation becomes the hurt that we experienced in the past.
uh-huh. The
And do you want me to go through the whole thing again for you?
Yeah, because
So
I'm typing as you are. I'm trying to share
okay,
it, and they're commenting here, and I just
got it.
want you to see that people are paying attention.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see. That's my daughter right there. You have taught me self-care is everything. Glad. I'm glad I was able to instill that in her. Yes.
The
Okay.
R is for
Wrong thinking. Yes.
the wrong thinking.
Hmm. So it's WR. I always capitalize the R in wrong. So wrong thinking.
I got you. Like
Yeah.
I got you. The wrong thinking.
Hmm.
Um, and the U was for unhealthy.
Yes. The unhealthy response.
Can I spell healthy? Unhealthy. I think I got it.
Mhm.
I don't want anybody criticizing me here because I do this for the goodness of and unhealthy response. There you
Yeah.
go. And then we have another T, which is the
The truth. What's the truth about the situation?
what's the truth?
Hmm.
I ain't spell that right. I know people. I'm just trying to share something with you so I can, if we leave you with nothing else, we leave you with some steps to assess the situation quickly.
Right.
What's the truth about the situation?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, okay, there you go. And then the H, healthy,
Yep. Your healthy response.
your healthy response.
Mhm.
There you go. And these are used for us to what, Crystal?
This is used so that we don't get caught up in that negative cycle, so that we can break free of that faulty thinking and we can really allow situations to speak for the situation at hand. We're not bringing our old hurts into a current situation. It allows us to step back and see things for what it really is.
Well, I tell you, it's definitely working because your daughter, Ariel, is that her name?
Yes, Ariel.
Yeah, she said, let me share. Let me just chime in here. I'm a witness. I'm a witness. Thank you, Ariel, for being a witness. Listen, I don't doubt Crystal for once because she has such a healthy persona, healthy attitude. And I don't want to keep all the good stuff I come and good people I come in contact to myself. So I want to share. And again, repeat that again. These are the steps. This is the process, um, a process to use.
Mhm. So that we can allow current situations to speak for that situation and not bring our hurts from past situations
A
into
process
what we're going through now.
I'm sorry, process you use that allow us to
Mhm.
assess, right?
Yes, current situations
Okay, to assess the current situation.
without bringing the hurt from the past.
Thank God for typing class. But without bringing the hurt from the past.
Yeah.
My typing teacher would be proud of me. And she said, Follow, you'll get it. This is years ago. Just type, it'll catch up. You'll be typing, look, you haven't looked down yet. And I to this day I go, she was so right. Let me pat her on the back. Um, again, we still have some closing comments.
Mhm.
Crystal, if you have any you want to make, where can people find you?
So, thank you for asking that. My website is thedrcrystalc.com. That's THEDR Crystal, CRYSTALC.com, thedrcrystalc.com. And then I'm also on Facebook at Dr. Crystal Consonery, Christian Counselor and Life Coach, and on Instagram at Dr. Crystal. But
Okay.
I
I'm
would
gonna leave
like to
that.
look at,
Go ahead.
I need to pull up my calendar, but I would like to extend an invitation to your listeners to a complimentary life coaching masterclass that I have going on. And it's the evening of the 17th of August at 8 p.m. And it's on discovering your
Yes.
purpose.
I'm sorry, life coaching free.
Mhm.
Did
It's
you say
master. I
free?
said life coaching. It's a masterclass. Yep, free masterclass. Yes, at 8 p.m. Eastern on August 17th.
So a master class on August 17th, and it's regarding.
Discovering your purpose. And they can find the link to register under the events tab on my website.
Okay. Um, master class August 17th on um, discovering your purpose.
Yes.
What time is that?
8 p.m. Eastern.
And it's on your site, right?
It is, yes. So they can just click on the site and it'll take them to the event bright registration link.
Okay. I'm just trying to put um, what should they click on it on Eventbrite?
They'll see it's a picture and it says masterclass. And it'll
Is it
take them
under
to
your name?
Eventbrite.
Is it under your name or your site or what?
It's on my site, but it'll say masterclass.
That's fine. I want you to give me your site again.
Okay. It's
THE.
DR
Mhm.
CRYSTAL So the drcrystalc.com.
Oh, it's not the whole word. See, crystalc.com.
Hmm. Yes. And
Okay.
once they're there, they can just go to the events page and they'll see the picture that says Discovering Your Purpose Masterclass. Click that and it will automatically take them to the registration.
Okay. I think they can find it from there.
Yes.
This is the first time I ever provided as much information, but I want people to not miss this opportunity, you know.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Crystal, I am blessed by you. I hope others was absolutely blessed by you today. We're going to have to revisit this again. This is the start of my new season. And I just want to thank you. My goal this year is to share with others what God has blessed me with through people using their gifts for good and for lifting up others. So, any lasting comments other than that? Oh, this is look at your daughter. Uh, bless her. I'm gonna have to hire her. Look at her.
She is amazing.
Oh my God. She said, YouTube, thank you, Ariel, thank you. I
Yeah.
want to make sure people who sometimes we get so busy we don't get a chance to go back and check stuff. So we need to put things at people's fingertips, right? And
Right.
you have so much out there to offer. You're such a warm person, and we can't talk to everybody, but we need to talk to somebody. I need to write that down. We can't talk to everybody, but we need to talk to somebody.
Right.
uh, so this has been really good. I'm going to try to, like I said to everyone else, this is Dr. Crystal Consonery. I met her in Howard Business School a couple of weeks ago, and I believe that this is just the beginning of a long friendship. But I want to again provide an opportunity for people to understand that talking things through, find someone to talk to is great. It doesn't have to be the ending of anything. It could be the beginning of something new, just to be able to avoid being paralyzed by your situation. Take every day and strive and know that you can embrace your faith and not have to worry about fear because we already know that God did not give us spirit of fear. But sometimes temporarily we get stuck, and that's okay. I just want to help y'all to get unstuck. I want to be unstuck and prevent burnout and to identify with the fact that we are in a post pandemic and we still probably all have different ways of responding in regards to PTSD. I went to the military, PTSD. Life situation, PTSD. Repeat PTSD. Listen, we need to talk to somebody. So I'm just trying to provide everybody an opportunity and someone to talk to. I will be hosting more shows with guests who I believe can add value to our life, help us to be able to face life and to deal with life one day at a time. And so that's the vision that God has given me to go forward. So I ask that you all lift me up and pray for me as I will continue to pray for all of you, um, seen and unseen. Um, Crystal, you have been a blessing and patient with me, and I thank you. Audience, you have been a blessing and patient, and I really, really appreciate you. This has been good for me. I don't know what I'm going to do after this because this has just been so overwhelming and fulfilling, Crystal.
Well, thank you though. Thank you so much for having me. This I am honored. I'm truly honored. So thank you.
This is just something that God places at my fingertips. I just need to know that God doesn't bless us for us; He blesses us for others, right?
Right.
And I want you to share with everyone. So again, thank you. You can revisit this whole conversation in regards to from today's episode. Stay tuned for future episodes that are coming up. I got some great guests that are coming. We're going to be talking with different ones who are like worship leaders and talking about the pre and post pandemic of worship leaders, leadership, and how worship should be a part of, is a part of Christian education as well. There's a lot that God has placed on my heart, and I'm just going to do the best I can do and let Him, for the glory of God, and let Him get the praise that He so rightly deserves. And so I thank everyone. If you're wondering why I've taken this pathway versus the pathway I took the year before, it's because that's what God led me to do. Leadership is a passion of mine. Um, I look at it. I'm a critic of leadership, but not for the bad, but for the good. And this year, I just want to let you know we're going to do everything church, everything God, and everything about living as a believer. So if you have any questions, you can always go back here and post them. Crystal will always chime in. Audience, I want to thank you again. You can find me on YouTube. I'm the Dr. Anita Fowler. You can find me on LinkedIn. And you can definitely find it on Facebook Live. So again, thank you so much, everyone. Crystal, stand by for a minute. I just want
Okay.
to say blessings to everyone. Have a great, great, great day. Listen, you're leaving here better than you came. I already know that. So blessings and stay tuned till next time.